He was originally a homebody, yet possessed an undeniably handsome side, though his true identity was that of a professional assassin. Unfortunately, he wasn't the male lead. The real protagonist was actually this blonde guy. Yet, against all expectations, this deadly duo of killers secretly kept an adorable cat at home. A year ago, the blonde had sacrificed his body to complete a mission, successfully obtaining the target's data, but when he returned to their apartment, he was utterly stunned. The scene before his eyes was beyond description. Facing his perpetually lazy, ice-cold partner Ah Ling, Yi Chi could only let out a deep, resigned sigh. What infuriated him even more was that this utterly helpless guy had brought home a stray cat, forcing Yi Chi to lose his temper. But no matter how much he scolded, Ah Ling remained expressionless, leaving Yi Chi no choice. He grabbed the kitten, determined to return it to where it came from. Though Ah Ling was reluctant, his own circumstances made him reconsider, so together, they went back to the spot where the cat was found and left it there. Clearly, Yi Chi wasn't heartless. In fact, he was an incredibly diligent homemaker. His skills so flawless he could have been the perfect housewife. Yet despite this, Ah Ling remained displeased with him. Yi Chi understood. He was sulking over the cat, so he carefully reminded Ah Ling of their dangerous profession. They could never predict if they'd live to see tomorrow. One misstep, and they might die on the streets. If they couldn't take responsibility till the end, they shouldn't interfere in the first place. This was a lesson Yi Chi had learned the hard way. He'd once fallen in love, even had a child on the way, but when enemies sought revenge, his lover and unborn baby met a tragic end. From then on, he knew irresponsible bonds only brought suffering. Changing the subject, Yi Chi tossed a file on the table. Their next target, a human trafficking middleman. Intel said the man was hosting a Christmas party at a hotel that night, and his wife had a sweet tooth, so Yi Chi prepared a special Christmas cake. The plan began swiftly. Yi Chi disguised himself as Santa and infiltrated the hotel, but security stopped him at the elevator. Unfazed, he lied smoothly, claiming the target's wife had ordered a surprise, even handing over his phone for confirmation. The voice on the line was actually his accomplice. After a harsh scolding, the guards lowered their guard but still inspected the cake. Just as it was opened, a tiny figure appeared nearby. A little girl, eyes sparkling at the delicious dessert, dashed over excitedly. Yi Chi managed to slip into the elevator, but at the last second, the little girl squeezed in, leaving him stunned. His heart melted instantly, and he offered her some cake, which she devoured with joy. Still craving more, she asked Santa to grant her wish. "I want to meet my daddy soon." Her words struck Yi Chi deeply. He learned the girl, Mei Li, had never seen her father. Her mother had told her he'd be here, so she'd come searching. Not wanting to crush her hope, Yi Chi played along but made her promise to stay put in the elevator. Yet the moment the doors opened, Mei Li bolted out, forcing Yi Chi to snatch her back just in time. Now it was Ah Ling's turn. She swiftly took down the guards, kicked open the ballroom doors, and made a dazzling entrance. Spotting their target, she didn't waste words, but before Yi Chi could react, Mei Li wriggled free and sprinted into the chaos, desperately calling for her father. As bullets flew, Ah Ling fought back, but even her skills were no match for machine gun fire. Yi Chi frantically asked if she'd seen Mei Li. Just then, the girl appeared beside their target, becoming a human shield. To protect her, Ah Ling hurled the cake, diverting attention. Ugh, this feels like Spy X Family, trying to trick me into wanting a daughter. With one final shot, the mission ended. Yet afterward, Yi Chi brought Mei Li home, leaving Ah Ling exasperated. No cats, but a child is fine. But things weren't so simple. In Mei Li's bag, they found two photos. If the woman pictured was her mother, then Mei Li might truly be Yi Chi's biological daughter. The target bore a slight resemblance to him, so Mei Li had latched onto Yi Chi as her father. Thrilled to have found him, she clung to him endlessly, begging for help with breakfast, pouting when he said she was too short, cue the meme-worthy tantrum, but never giving up. The noise woke Ah Ling, and the second he emerged, Yi Chi shoved Mei Li at him, suggesting Daddy Ling play games with her, only for the little gremlin to immediately break his high score. Watching her eat happily, Yi Chi's face softened with affection, though he grumbled, "Such a troublesome kid." In her bag, they also found a letter from Mei Li's mother. The letter was written by Mei Li's mother to the target, and after reading it, they discovered that Mei Li's mom was once in a romantic relationship with the man Yi Chi had just killed. 2 years ago, he had abandoned Mei Li and her mother, and out of resentment, Mei Li's mom decided to send the child back to her father, demanding child support and compensation. But now that the father was already killed by Yi Chi and Lin, they couldn't possibly hand Mei Li over to the police. So Yi Chi had no choice but to find a way to return Mei Li to her mother. Unfortunately, there was no address in the letter. They wanted to ask Mei Li where she came from, but she didn't know anything. She only knew her name was Haiban Mei Li. She was 4 years old, and her mommy sang very beautifully. After a failed search online, Yi Chi helplessly decided to visit his contact, Aju, and left Mei Li at home under Lin's watch. Before leaving, he changed Mei Li into fresh clothes, switched on the TV with cartoons to keep her distracted, and then headed to the bar with Lin. Aju was furious when they arrived and slammed a newspaper on the table, scolding them for the chaos they caused at the hotel the day before. Even though they completed the mission, he said there had to be be limits to the mess they made. He handed them their payment and gave them another emergency mission. Yichi hesitated but eventually gathered the courage to ask Aju if he could investigate whether the target had a child. Aju seemed a bit disappointed but agreed to look into it. As Yichi and Lin left the bar, a mysterious and dark man entered right after. Aju became noticeably serious upon seeing him, but the man simply dropped a note and said they could contact him for future missions, then turned and walked away. The note had just 2 words, Xiao Mu Ai. Meanwhile, Yichi and Aaron returned home, but the eerie silence inside made Aaron draw her gun immediately, her instincts on high alert. The living room was a mess and completely empty, which made Yichi very uneasy. Just as he was about to shout Mei Li's name, they heard a noise upstairs. Later that evening, Yichi reviewed the new mission. Their target was a notorious drug lord who lived in a heavily guarded mansion near the bay. A frontal assault was impossible, and sniping from afar wouldn't work either. Aaron suggested they could just storm the place and kill everyone, but Yichi quickly rejected the idea, especially since they had already made enough noise with their last mission. Suddenly, Mei Li ran over and said the hamburger meat didn't taste like her mom's cooking. Yichi misunderstood her and nervously praised his own cooking skills, only to realize Mei Li looked a bit down. She missed her mom. Yichi was worried, but Mei Li quickly made a funny face and excitedly shouted that she wanted to play hide and seek. Yichi sighed, but was soon tricked by her nimble moves as she darted around. Oddly enough, this gave him inspiration for the mission plan, but when he refused to play with her, Mei Li once again puffed up in frustration like a little cartoon emoji. The next morning, as Yichi and Aaron prepared to leave, Mei Li insisted on coming along. Aaron was troubled, but Yichi confidently said he'd handle it. He brought out a pile of snacks, hoping to distract Mei Li. They barely stepped out when Mei Li caught on and began to cry, drawing the attention of the nosy neighbors. Seeing her pitiful little face, Yichi had no choice but to take her along. Their plan was simple. Yichi would disguise himself as a maintenance worker to sneak into the mansion, block the front entrance, and force the target to escape through the back by the bay, where Aaron would be waiting in ambush. As the mission began, just as luck would have it, Mei Li said she needed to pee. Yichi was speechless and told her to hold it for a bit. He made it past the gate guards by pretending to be on a repair call and entered the surveillance room, where he zapped the guards with a stun gun and disabled the security system. Everything was going smoothly until Mei Li rang the mansion doorbell and shouted that she had to pee. Oblivious to this, Yichi had already placed traps and was about to exit when he saw Mei Li thanking a guard after coming out of the bathroom. Great, this little gremlin had completely blown his cover. The guard immediately questioned him, and Yichi couldn't come up with a good excuse. The guard reached for his phone to call backup. Yichi tried to grab Mei Li and run, but she thought it was all part of the hide-and-seek game. Laughing and screaming, she dashed ahead while Yichi chased after her in panic. With 3 guards now in pursuit, Yichi had to trigger the traps and run straight into the target's room, where he finally caught Mei Li, only to find themselves surrounded. Just as the guards were about to fire, a bullet smashed through the window and hit a guard in the arm. Aaron had arrived. No longer hiding, she confidently strode in and calmly took down 2 more guards with ease. While gunfire raged, Yichi grabbed Mei Li with one hand and held Aaron back with the other as they fled. The mission had utterly failed. On the airship ride back to the city, Yichi scolded Mei Li, but every word was filled with love and concern. Mei Li could feel how much her dad cared about her, and she beamed with joy. Back home, Aju called, not to scold them, but to say they were off the mission. He'd handle it himself. As for the investigation, yes, the target and his mistress did have a daughter. He had also found the woman's address. Meanwhile, gunfire echoed in the dark night. Inside the drug lord's mansion, bodies were scattered everywhere. That same mysterious man, Xiao Mu, was executing his own brutal justice. Say your final words, he whispered to the dying target. Back home, mornings were chaotic but sweet. If every dad had a daughter like Mei Li yelling to wake him up, no one would ever be late for work again. Her only downside, she drained energy like crazy. One moment she was eating breakfast, and the next she demanded a piggyback ride. The yellow-haired guy distracted her with a magic toy, then said it was time to take her to find her mom. After all, their profession wasn't fit for raising a child. He retrieved her info from Aju, though her biological mom might not have been great. She was still better than 2 hitmen playing house. He joked that he became this way because he never had real parents. Mei Li shaped some clay balls and handed them to her Papa Huang Mao, making him tense up with emotion. Outside, Mei Li was told not to call him dad, so when she turned around and saw no one nearby, she suddenly got distracted by a sweet potato vendor's call. The yellow-haired guy couldn't resist her smile. After all, her childhood had barely known any joy. Lin commented that he also never had a happy childhood. Mei Li waved excitedly, wanting to eat roasted sweet potatoes, and the 2 childish adults lost a guessing game, so the loser had to go buy it. Although the yellow-haired guy felt reluctant, he believed he wasn't meant to be a father. He left briefly to get drinks, and during that time, Mei Li asked Lin to push her on the swing. As she played, a patrolling old man approached and asked Mei Li whether Lin was her father. Recalling she wasn't supposed to call him that in public, Mei Li stayed quiet when the yellow-haired guy returned. He explained that in dangerous situations, it's okay for her to call him dad, and and Lin added that in such cases, she should call him that too, even if it brings trouble. That night, the yellow-haired guy asked Mei Li to sleep early, but she mischievously said there might be ghosts and wanted to see one. She also insisted on sleeping with Dad, but was turned down. Refusing to give up, Mei Li tiptoed into Lin's room, only to find the bed empty. Eventually, she found him soaking in the bathtub, and Lin explained he didn't dare sleep on the bed to avoid surprise attacks. Mei Li, smiling, said she wanted to be with him because being alone was dangerous, and if he made a mistake, he might get caught. The yellow-haired guy, trying to scare her, chanted a magic spell his mom taught him as a kid to drive scary things away. "Go away, creepy creatures!" But Lin had his own spell from childhood. It was one that stopped him from smiling. Late at night, the yellow-haired guy was still working hard, searching online and finally finding Mei Li's biological mother's workplace. The next day, he told Mei Li they were going to eat hamburger meat just like Mom used to make. He asked her to wait in the car while he checked the place out first. What would happen when a cold, emotionless killer suddenly met a woman who smiled all the time? At her workplace, he heard a familiar melody, Mei Li's favorite song, and saw a beautiful woman practicing her vocals. As he stepped in, she was kicked by a man with a slicked-back hairstyle who thought she was secretly entertaining other men and started beating her. When the yellow-haired guy intervened, the thug grabbed a bottle and slashed his face. In return, he punched the man hard in the face. Meanwhile, in the car, Mei Li got bored and wanted to play on the swings, so she asked Lin to push her again. He helplessly complied. Then she asked to play the seesaw with Lin on the other end, and afterward she waved to him from the top of the slide. But when Lin didn't wave back, onlookers misunderstood and thought their father-daughter relationship was strained. Mei Li, however, was having a great time and said she wanted to come play with the yellow-haired guy again next time. She didn't understand why they were trying to find her real dad, because to her, he already was. Lin asked who her biological father was, and Mei Li said, "Dad is the one who helps you when things are hard." Lin's thoughts drifted back to his own childhood. As the son of a crime boss, he was raised to kill his enemies, and when he refused to hurt a little concubine, he got beaten. In the underworld, it was either kill or be killed. Mei Li didn't even let him call himself her dad, only old dad. While Lin was lost in thought, Mei Li disappeared. Back inside, Mei Li's biological mother asked the yellow-haired guy what he wanted. He told her Mei Li missed her mom, but she thought he was one of her ex's lackeys and demanded compensation. When she learned he had only taken Mei Li in halfway through, she grew disappointed and wanted nothing more to do with her daughter. The yellow-haired guy said Mei Li missed her mom's hamburger meat, but the woman scoffed that it was just a supermarket ready-to-eat pack, and any child who liked that must be pitiful. Still, she admitted even instant food should have been made by her, because that's a mother's duty. But she never wanted to give birth to Mei Li in the first place. She had only been deceived by a scumbag. Every time she saw Mei Li's smiling face, it made her furious. There was nothing funny, so why did Mei Li always smile? Even when told not to, she wouldn't stop, and the memory of it made her angry. The yellow-haired guy lashed out, calling her irresponsible like her ex. Parents should want to protect their child's smile at all costs. The woman snapped that she had served Mei Li every day, yet both Mei Li and her father destroyed her dreams. How could she protect a smile that ruined her life? He retorted that such sacrifices were a mother's duty, but she growled that people who speak like saints only bring their families more pain. Disappointed, the yellow-haired guy left money for the drinks and walked away in silence, leaving the woman to stew in her bitterness and regret. Meanwhile, Lin had run all over looking for Mei Li and finally found her being questioned by strangers. He tried to sneak away, but then heard Mei Li struggling and calling out, "Daddy, save me!" He remembered her saying that the one who helps you during hardship is your true dad. So Lin turned around, declared, "I'm her dad," and took her home. On the way back, they ran into the yellow-haired guy who said they'd pick up dinner for 3 and eat at home. That evening, he cooked Mei Li's favorite, Mom's hamburger meat. If every home had a little rascal like this, wouldn't everyone's blood pressure skyrocket? The two male leads were already exhausted. Just then, they passed a kindergarten bus and saw it as their saving grace. The yellow-haired guy told Mei Li that kindergartens were fun places with gentle big sisters. Mei Li perked up with interest. He thought this would be their temporary break, but all the nearby kindergartens required registration through the district office. Mei Li was already dressed and ready to go, and he realized it was too late for regrets. At the district office, they had to get a number and wait in line. After finally being called, they were bombarded with documents and told to provide proof of employment. The yellow-haired guy nearly had a breakdown. How could someone working underground show proof of a legal job? He wanted to quit right then and there, but Mei Li blocked him with a surprise headbutt and quickly gathered all the papers. Angry, she called him a liar for saying they'd go to kindergarten. He was the best at upsetting little girls. With no choice, the yellow-haired guy hacked into the transport network, faked employment records, and successfully got the application approved. The officer suggested they visit the school first. Lin tried to run off midway, but the yellow-haired guy dragged him along. At the kindergarten, the teacher saw Mei Li's file and noted she had 2 dads. Mei Li proudly said the yellow-haired guy was great at cooking and even faked documents for her, while Lin was a pro with water guns. The yellow-haired guy panicked and explained it was just a game. Mei Li added that both of them had done bad things, but told her kids didn't need to know. Embarrassed, the yellow yellow-haired guy grabbed Mei Li and ran, warning her to never speak like that again. Next time, if anyone asked, Mei Li was told to simply say, "Just like Daddy said." The moment the yellow-haired guy got her admission pass, he brought Mei Li straight to the kindergarten, dragging the runaway Lin back in too. When the teacher asked how it felt to have two dads, Mei Li happily said it felt great, that they were always together and had a super strong bond. She whispered that they didn't actually do bad things. The yellow-haired guy chimed in with a cover story, saying they were city cleaners, people who quietly made things better behind the scenes, and they even earned a decent living thanks to everyone. The teachers didn't ask further and said they could drop by anytime. But raising a kid as assassins? Just enrolling her into kindergarten required a whole night of prep and a mountain of things they didn't understand. The yellow-haired guy didn't care and went straight to the department store. With his worldview, when joining group activities, you had to look your best to avoid being looked down on. People judge by appearance, so Mei Li needed to wear brand name outfits, and even they needed to dress up properly. He went all out, buying a mountain of supplies until the room overflowed. Lin noticed the guidebook said personal items should be labeled with the child's name and even stitched onto her bedding. The yellow-haired guy felt his soul leave his body. Going to school was such a hassle, but he'd said it himself. If you weren't prepared, others would look down on you. So, reluctantly, he went out to buy needle and thread. Lin handed Mei Li a pen to write her name herself, and she proudly showed off her masterpiece to the yellow-haired guy. 4 days later, the trio arrived at kindergarten, dressed to impress. True to form, the yellow-haired guy couldn't help but show off his looks. The kindergarten group chat exploded with chatter about the two hot dads who had just joined. The teacher asked the yellow-haired guy to fill in Mei Li's daily temperature and journal, and he confidently said it was done, but everything in the book was about himself. Embarrassed, he asked where to put Mei Li's lunchbox, saying cooking was his only skill, but sadly the kindergarten provided its own meals, so his handmade bento had to go back with him. During recess, Mei Li wanted to play ball with the boys, but they looked at her fancy clothes and ignored her. Then she tried to play with the girls, but they said she'd get her outfit dirty and walked away. When the yellow-haired guy picked her up and asked if she had fun, Mei Li said she wasn't sure yet. The next day, she confessed that kindergarten wasn't what she expected. Over the following days, Mei Li grew quieter and more withdrawn. One day, the yellow-haired guy saw her sitting alone in the classroom and asked the teacher how Mei Li was doing. The teacher said she had written about it in the notebook, but he hadn't read it at all. Turns out, Mei Li's clothes made her seem hard to approach, so the yellow-haired guy brought her to her mom's favorite discount store. Everything was cheap and diverse. Even Lin thought it was heaven. The yellow-haired guy told them to pick anything they wanted. After all, buying everything here still cost less than one branded outfit. He also bought Mei Li a bicycle to ride to school. Back at kindergarten, he encouraged her to play ball again. This time, she showed off her skills and quickly caught the attention of the other kids. Soon, they all wanted to play with her. When he asked again how she felt, Mei Li said she was super happy now, but raising a kid came with a price. No matter how much money they had, even two assassins' earnings could barely cover 1 month's expenses. At this rate, they couldn't even afford games or pudding after dinner. To earn more, the yellow-haired guy begged Aju for more work, so Aju handed them 3 jobs to complete within a week. But before they could begin, the kindergarten called to say class was temporarily suspended. Mei Li wanted to go to the park, so if you liked this anime and want a part 2, let me know in the comments. I'll upload part 2 right away.